In this video, I want to give students a little extra guidance on homework 4, and it's just so much easier to be able to talk and point to things rather than try to put words together that give sufficient detail. So, first of all, you have found this video giving guidance on homework. I will of course fill in the link before I give you the document, but I'm making the video right now. Okay, and so it says that the following pages contain drawings of several different parts. Okay, you're going to create 4 different part files. You're going to upload them into the D2L Dropbox of the appropriate name, and the 4 parts you're going to create would be one would be called keyring, one will be called Batarang Draft. I'll tell you what that means in a moment. One's going to be called Batarang Loft, and the other one is OSU Logo, and you're going to put them in a D2L Dropbox named Homework 4 dash Wednesday labs if you're a Wednesday student, Tuesday labs if you're a Tuesday student, etc. Homework due next week. That's not the main thing that I want to talk about. I will point out that we did discuss lofts this week. This was the short video, just repeating the loft lecture that we did. Design intent is a big idea. There's a video that discusses design intent as we did in the lab this week. Sketcher tools was the biggest part of our lab discussion this week, and the Sketcher tools has an indexed file so that you can easily find what you would like to watch in that video without having to search through the video. Okay, you're going to be creating a part called keyring. I guess I called it bad keyring here because it is a bad keyring. Keyring is the first thing that you're going to create. I've created a video that gives you precise details on how to do homework part number 1. I recommend you try to do it without watching the video at first, but it goes step by step by step through homework part number 1 should you need to watch that. Okay, here are the 4 parts you're going to create. That thing that's sort of keyring like, a Batarang throwing disc, and an OSU logo, and you're going to create this Batarang using 2 different methods, one method with a draft and one method with a loft, and that's part of why I'm making this video, is to help explain this a little bit better. But first, let's see what we have on the other pages, and let's go ahead and make things smaller so they'll fit a little bit better. This is the beginning part of that thing called a keyring, and so I suggest you make this part exactly as shown on these drawings, with these 2 little stems sticking out. You get some detail on these stems. And once this part is made, then using 2 of those stems, create a swept feature to connect them and turn 2 stems into a ring. Now these stems are at 45 degrees in the original picture. I changed these stems to be about 30 degrees apart for the 2 that are connected by the sweep. Just make a sweep that looks pretty much like this. If you want more detail, go watch the video, but make a sweep that looks like that, and then use a circular pattern to create 5 of them. That's the first part. And now this, I call this a bad keyring because it looks like you could put keys on each of these loops if this were a fairly small thing. Problem is there's no way to get any of these balls out of these holes unless this big center part could somehow unscrew and come apart. Otherwise it's a bad keyring. Okay, this is a drawing of the Batarang. It gives all of the details of the primary sketch, and then it shows over here that the Batarang with section CC is a thin thing that at least one of the edges is sharply tapered. What we're seeing is that sharply tapered edge right there. Now, how are you going to create this? If you take a look at everything in this sketch except this outer line and that outer line, that ought to be your first sketch. The shape of a bat, but the outer lines, and let me move in a little bit now so I can point a little bit better. So the shape of a bat, but the sketch will include this line and this spline, but it will not include that one and that one. This geometry will come about either because of an extrude, when we extrude the bat straight. So we have a throwing bat but no sharp edges. when you extrude this sketch without these two outer lines on either side, you get sort of a blunt edge thing. But as you know, we can then use a draft to put a large taper on any of the edges we like using the draft command that we saw last week. That's one way to make this final geometry, is to create the sketch, extrude it straight, and then put a draft on these surfaces. The other way to create this batarang is, first of all, create the exact same sketch that I just described. Everything is shown, this inner line and inner spline, but not the outer line, not the outer spline. Create a sketch exactly as shown on one plane. Then create a datum plane, 0.05 over from the original plane. And then use offset entities and copying of entities to basically copy geometry over to the new sketch plane that has the entire sketch, but it no longer has this inner line. It instead uses the outer line. And then, so you'll have a smaller sketch on one plane that has the inner boundary, a larger sketch on the other plane that has the outer boundary plus all of this stuff, and then you can do a loft from the sketch on one plane to the sketch on the other plane, and that loft will create this sharp edge transition between the two planes, and that loft will give the part thickness. So the key thing is creating the sketch first. Once you've done that, the draft is very fast, and the loft doesn't take long at all. Then finally, we have an OSU Logo solid part, which is created from a series of sketches. Here's the first sketch. It creates the outer extrude of the logo. And then a second sketch, which is mostly offset entities. No, it's entirely offset entities. Then a third sketch, which is, again, offset entities. And then a fourth sketch, which really is a lot of offset entities to get it started, followed then by cleanup and tweaking and dimensioning. With those four sketches, you can then create, with extrude solids and extrude cuts, that OSU logo. And so creating this sketch with these dimensions will test some of your sketching skills and enhance your sketching skills. And creating this sketch, trying as much as possible to use the dimensions shown and nothing else, but we're not going to freak out if you can't create this sketch with only the dimensions shown. Do your best to create this sketch and then create the solid OSU logo part. So going back, what are we asking you to do? Create 4 parts. The key ring, there's a video that helps with that if you need it. 2 different batarangs done with the same basic sketch, but one with a draft, one with a loft, and the OSU logo. Turn them into the correct drop box. That'll be it.